I would like to call this meeting of the School District of West Dallas, West Milwaukee et al. To order, please. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Keller, would you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Suzette, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Ustra?
Here.
Mr. Keller?
Here.
Ms. Curran? Here. Ms. Emmons? Here. Mr. Lee?
Here.
Mr. Bailey?
Here.
Mrs. Sujecki? Here. Mrs. Justin? Here. President Sikich?
Present. Proper notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the open meeting laws of the state of Wisconsin. Board members or Dr. Lexman, any additions or modifications to this evening's agenda?
I have no changes.
See none. We'll move on to public comments. We have several signed up. Just a reminder, our procedure is try to limit yourself to 3 minutes, please. We do not provide any answers or debates back, but if it is a specific question, you'll receive an answer from Dr. Lexman, someone in administration, or myself. First, please give your name and address for the record. Pat Cliff.
My name is Pat Cliff. I live on 3670 South Green Lawn Terrace in Berlin. I would like to thank the school board for taking up the proposal that's going to be in front of you tonight to give high school credits to students in middle school who are taking high school level classes. I think this is a great way for students to excel and achieve all that they can, as well as demonstrating that our district supports these high achieving students and creates them as well. There are, however, a couple of serious consequences that I hope are unintended in the current version of the proposal. These classes won't count towards fulfilling the high school graduation requirements of these kids. Effectively, this forces the students into taking more classes that are more difficult than their peers would take. For example, if someone took 1 or 2 years of high school math in middle school, they would still need to complete 3 more years of math in high school. This is requiring them to take upper level math that their peers are not required to take. This also is important if a student gets ahead of schedule in something like math. Maybe when they're in high school, now that they've completed all this math, maybe they want to branch out and look into biological sciences or music or chemistry and get more rounded education in these other areas that they might not have the opportunity to if they have to complete 3 more years of math classes or whatever they have. Just because a student gets a head start, they shouldn't be pigeonholed and forced to continue along one course of study at the expense of other interests and a more rounded education. Then there's another hopefully unintended consequence, and that is that these grades won't count in their GPA. So one of these students who is taking their lower level math classes won't be in their GPA, and they'll still be forced to take these 3 higher level math classes. Their peers will have, a higher grades in lower level classes, and they won't have those lower level high grades that might offset lower grades that they receive in classes that are harder, that they are forced to take. A policy like this should only encourage students and reward them for hard work, intelligence. By not giving the same credit for the same class that they would be taking while physically in high school, it only penalizes and discourages our brightest and hardest working students from doing something like this. This policy should not be about preventing our brightest students from failing or for getting low standardized test scores. It should be about providing them the opportunity to excel and succeed like neighboring districts currently do, like New Berlin. That's what I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Excuse me. John Mullen?
I know all of you know me by now, but my name is John Mulling. I live at 3850 South Pole Drive in New Berlin, Wisconsin. I suspect by now you've all seen the headline of the Journal from a week ago You're either famous now all over the state or infamous, however you want to look at it. You're known from Door County to Rhinelander to La Crosse to Beloit to Kenosha. They all know about you now. I guess you guys never thought it would go this far, but you forgot one thing, that you've never dealt with me before. Well, when I intend to do something, I follow through with it. We're kind of nicknamed on our poll drive now as the Freedom 14. From the very start, the small territory transfers was mishandled by this board and Marty. Here's what you did. On 1/26/18, I gave Marty's secretary, Suzette, the petition. She said we could meet in the back room and, present it to you. And my answer was, no cameras, no quorum, no deal. Concerning the board addressing the transfer, there was a lot of probably incorrect things that were done parliamentary procedure when you discussed that, or absolutely didn't discuss it, at the board meeting on the 26th of February. Debbie will be addressing that in a little bit. During addressing the issue, if you listen real carefully on the tape, you can hear a female voice very, very softly when it was addressed that asked whether New Berlin was voting yes or not, and Marty said, yes, they're voting yes tonight. You can hear very, very faintly on the tape a female voice saying, well, of course they would. I would suggest that when you're mic'd up, you might not want to make snide comments about people of New Berlin. The most egregious thing about the whole matter was you didn't even vote on it. You didn't have the courage to vote on it. I told you when my dad said you sign, when you think about something and it means something to you, you write your name to the thing. You didn't sign your name. You didn't even vote. All you would have had to do is make a motion to table. I second it. Done. You didn't give us the respect to even do that. That little bit of respect. You haven't shown us one bit of respect in this whole matter. Now, concerning Marty's denial letter, I've had several phone calls to Janice in Madison. She heads the appeal board. Janice said to me, I'm sending you an email as to the appeal process, but I'm doing it as a, quote, courtesy. She said, the superintendent is responsible for the notification to the applicant. That's a quote from her. She heads the appeal board. In Marty's letter, he did not do that. I can think of two reasons. One, either incompetence, or two, he didn't put it in there because he might have thought we thought that was the end of the process and it would die there. Well, it didn't die there. I just sent out certified mail on Saturday. 14 of 14 people signed the appeal letter. It cost us $750 between 14 of us. We put our money where our mouth is. We paid $54 a piece, and we're going there in May. And that's where I'm going to be seeing you guys in May, because we're going to that 3-person appeal board, and we're going to take it to the end.
Mr.
Finally,
Mullin, you have 1 minute left.
okay. Finally, I had a conversation with one of you board members about 2 weeks ago. The board member said, John, you're right. New Berlin kids on poll drives should go to New Berlin schools. This is from one of you. 2, I do not think the parliamentary procedure was followed properly during that discussion on 2/26. 3, there are increased problems because there's Milwaukee County involved with Waukesha County. 4, and here's the best one of all. New Berlin should take over the operation of Hoover School and should hire the teachers. At least one of you people came out with the truth, finally. And I know what you're thinking right now, maybe some curse words, but I know the other thing you're all thinking, it was Dan. Well, it wasn't Dan. It was one of the other 8 of you that I had that conversation with. It wasn't Dan. And last but not least, when I stand up here, sometimes I feel like David versus Goliath. And I just want to remind you one thing. David won. And I'd like to enter these into the minutes.
Thank you. Deb Newroth. Sure.
Thank you.
My name is Deb Newroth. I live at 3840 South Pole Drive, New Berlin. I've handed out my prepared comments to the board based on the recording secretary's misquotes of my comments at the February 12, 2018 board meeting. My comments were included in the minutes approved by the board at the February 26, 2018 board meeting. The lack of professionalism by this board at the February 26, 2018 meeting once again shows the board's lack of respect for the citizens of New Berlin who are in the West Dallas, West Milwaukee School District. I have given you a copy of a letter sent to John Molling dated January 26, 2018 on school district letterhead, which states, and I quote, "Each affected school board must vote on the proposed reorganization," unquote. This letter was signed by Brian Keller, Board of Education clerk. I find it hard to believe that no one on the board found it necessary to bring a motion to the floor. Why no vote when Mr. Molling was sent a letter by the West Dallas, West Milwaukee School District stating that there would be. I am also inquiring if the order of denial was in fact received by the Department of Public Instruction's School District Appeal Board within 5 days after the order was made. Also, when was the resolution adopted as stated on the order of the denial form? Thank you.
Thank you. Teresa Ratajewski.
Hi, I'm Teresa Ratajewski. I live at 2740 South 132nd Street, New Berlin. I'm here also about the tax change. Personally, to begin with, my husband and I have been in the district for quite some time. Took a lot of hard work and a lot of effort to get to New Berlin. And choices were made to stay in the district at the time, even though I knew there were issues with Kurt, which I brought to the board numerous times in the past. We are very upset about the extra increase, but not only that, we are with the other residents on the board of New Berlin to get back into a New Berlin school district. And these are some of the reasons why, because we weren't taken in consideration. I'm tired of all the years I've been in front of the board, hearing it's about my kids, but the lack of effort on the board, on every end, there is a lot of lack of it. For one, there is a house in West Dallas. It's 1,277 square feet more than mine. It has an extra bedroom more than mine, an extra bathroom. It was assessed at $27,000 more than my house, and the rate is only at 12.9. You need to recalculate that New Berlin tax, for one. You need to reimburse us for this tax we just lost. And if you didn't know this, shame on you. You have no idea what some sacrifices have been made by families and what we've been taken advantage of. For one, with your tax increase, I want to ask you this. How many people in our school district don't pay their fees, their school fees? How many don't pay their sports fees? I know I had to pay extra AP fees for the kids who don't pay them. What I'm telling you is I'm a Christian and I give. But what makes me angry is you're coming at me again for things you can't even collect or other things you can't take care of to keep these costs down. When we're a district suffering, I've asked this a dozen times, I've asked this of Kurt, look at the numbers and start rearranging things. I asked him, when do you look at your taxpayers who actually pay? And he drove me in a circle. Pat, I even had an email back and forth with you back in 2013 over the Lane thing and getting a letter 6 months before my kid was supposed to go to school at FLW that he was going to Lane. Kurt did semi-transfer, but I also talked to him and there were a lot of concerns. And you and I had an email back and forth, and I was in front of this district then. And I was here in 2011 over another incident, the Next Gen Learning. And I was talking about getting Kurt out of this district. What makes me very angry is, I've mentioned it a dozen times, and there's only one man in this whole entire place who ever called me back, who ever discussed it with me, and that's Mr. Bailey. What makes me really sad is that I also found out Dan Bailey is only on one board. And that makes me very upset because we elect you. And I called people the other day. Yes, I was irate, because you don't know the history that I've been through with this district, with Kurt, and with all of you from time being. And this is just another slap in the face. Not only this, but the fact that you're not listening to a gentleman who has an HR background, that he's all being voted against, and we voted him in. So that makes me feel that this board isn't pulling any better. The other thing is, when the referendum was being talked about, Mr. Lexman was at the meeting. I asked a question about somebody going after Kurt. And one woman yelled up and said, it's not all Kurt's fault. I said, I never said it was. Once again, I was told, this is a town hall meeting and this is not for debate. And I'm really tired about not debates, because then our children are not being thought of. The other thing is, right after that, someone got up and asked about money and a budget, and Cromney came up, I think that it was the gentleman's name, and said, well, there was an accounting error. Once again, why aren't our accountants being looked at? There's been numerous things in this district that haven't been looked at from time and time again, and I've been here on and off many times questioning those, and I'm questioning the stuff that's going on now today.
Ms. Rejewski, you have a minute left.
I ask that if you seriously, really care about the kids, you must care about mine, then you must seriously think about letting us leave this district. You must seriously consider it. If my kid means that much, you need to let him go because you have made every effort to show that my kid is not of a concern to you in the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amanda Redberg.
Hello, I am Amanda Retberg. I live at 3885 South Pole Drive in New Berlin. And I did speak to you a couple of weeks ago, and for the small territory transfer, I was advocating because New Berlin, I said I was tired of feeling excluded, living in New Berlin and being part of the community. And what's wonderful is they're more than willing to take the households and the schools on Pole Drive. You said no. Well, I think you did. You really didn't do anything. And I want to know why. It's why are you doing this? We want to leave. They are willing to take us. But according to the Journal Sentinel article, it's because of money. It is not my fault that you mismanage the money, but you are putting it on the backs of innocent people. Own it and do something about it, but stop egregiously taxing people who had nothing to do with it. Nothing at all. If you would have reasonably taxed us with 3% or less, reasonably, we probably wouldn't be here. But you didn't. You didn't do that. I am an educator. I have taught college for over 10 years. If you don't think for 1 minute that I don't want every single school district to succeed, you're wrong. I do. I wish they would all had excellent, excellent education, similar to Finland, but we don't. We just don't. Instead of saying, oh, let's tax the heck out of people, instead say, why are they leaving our district? Shouldn't we do more? Let us go and figure out how to make your district A. Don't you want to be an A? Don't you want families running to you? And by the way, New Berlin does have open enrollment, but they don't have any seats, right? None for the past 2 years. So in that Journal Sentinel article, when you said, no, we can't let New Berlin, the South Pole Drive people go, but you know what? There's open enrollment. New Berlin doesn't have seats, but you know who does? You do. Let us go, and if people want to move their kids, you have open enrollment. They can go, right? All I'm asking you is to be responsible leaders. Don't put on the backs of innocent people your mismanagement. Be the good leaders, make your school district better, but don't egregiously tax people who had nothing to do with the mismanagement of funds. You want to be leaders, own it, but don't put it on other people. I wish you the best with what you do with your school district, but let us go. New Berlin will take us. Let us go. And maybe in 15 years from now, you'll be so great that we'll want to come back. Focus on that. Make yourselves competitive, but don't tax the heck out of us. And by the way, I have to agree with John. The snide comments were just not appreciated. Not appreciated on the audio video or on the YouTube channel. I heard those, not appreciated. Please be professional. Be the leaders that you're supposed to be. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Those are the only individuals that we had signed up, but at this time, if there's anybody who had not signed up, then you would like to address the board, now would be the time. Seeing none, we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Great. Thank you. First, we're going to have a report from our student representatives from James Dotke High School. So welcome, introduce yourselves to the board and share your comments with us.
Okay, hello, my name's Leticia and I'm 12th grade from Dotke High School. All right, thank you for allowing us to share those exciting things that have been going on at Dotke this year. To start off, we are so happy to start off this year with our new location. We were excited to be in a traditional school setting with things that we did not have before, like a cafeteria, a gym, a main office, an auditorium, and more. We have worked hard to make our own space. Over the summer, the main office and the cafeteria were painted in our school colors. We got a bunch of banners that are placed throughout the school and make it feel like it's home for us. The first couple of weeks of school in September, we were great. We really helped set a tone for the school year. Since we had over 80 new students this year, we spent time our team building activities and connecting with staffs and the students. The school-wide theme for the year is Own It, and Mr. Gales will share more details about that later. Our rollout, including getting students to understand our PBIS focus, will be responsible, respectful, and be the positive part of our community.
Hello, my name is Chardonnay. I'm also a 12th grader at Docky High School. Speaking of community, we had our community open house in October. Around 20 neighbors showed up for a taco dinner, building tour, and presentation. Another 20 students and staff attended too. A representative from Walker's Point Youth and Family Services also spoke about our partnership with them and their experiences working with Docky students for the last years. Also, we received positive feedback from those who attended. Also related to community, we started school-wide community circles every Tuesday afternoon. The school is split in half, and we conduct 2 large circles in the gym opposite the two lunch periods. Staff and students use the time to connect and celebrate positive things going on at Docky. Students and staff share our positive experiences they had, recognize their peers for good things, announce the student and staff of the week, play team building games, and make announcements about clubs and activities.
In regards to clubs and activities, there are many things to share with you. Students can sign up to participate in art club, guitar club, disc golf, school's newspaper, open gym, and more. In addition to myself and numerous other students from other high schools are part of the Youth Commission, which follows us the opportunity to improve the West Allis District. The open gym is said to have been huge successful this year. Any students that meets attendance grade requirements for the week can participate in open gym after school on Fridays. The principal and teachers play basketball, ping pong, volleyball, and other activities with us every week.
Being a positive member of our community continues to be focused at Docky. We are expanding our community partners by having each crew, which is kind of like a homeroom, adopt a community partner to work with all year. Our school has over 20 community partners like the Rotary Club, Blood Center of Wisconsin, Walker's Point, several senior living communities, West Allis Public Library, multiple schools, West Allis Women's Club, Hunger Task Force, and others. Our service learning and leadership girls also continue the work with the community as they have for many years. This year we will host 4 blood drives, have representatives speak at multiple Rotary Club meetings, host holiday parties for those in need, made 500 mindfulness jars for the district, and more.
Lastly, at Docky, we also know how to have fun together. We've had a few crew challenges this year, gone canoeing, to the rope course, a field trip to the zoo with behind-the-scenes access, labs, a career fair, JA Finance Park field trip, and of course, our traditional Thanksgiving meal. This event was even more special this year as we could. The school's kitchen to prepare and serve food, as well as spread out the seating in the gym. The food was amazing. We got to spend time as a whole school Docky family and finish off the event with sharing out things that we are grateful for. Many students have expressed that they were grateful for Docky giving them another second chance at graduating in life. We are looking forward to finish up the school year and have a great graduation. We hope to see you there. Thank you for inviting us to this meeting to speak out. Have a great night.
Thank
Thank you very much. Questions or comments by board members?
Nice job.
Heather?
I'd just like to say, I attended the open house, and it was fantastic. There was a lot of different groups out there that offer support to the school, and the 2 gentlemen sitting out here were just great in welcoming people and making I was in the neighborhood, I lived in the neighborhood at the time, and the neighbors who were there were very impressed with how they felt welcomed in the building. They didn't feel like, ooh, this is the school, but thank you guys so much.
Also, I would like to add that Mr. Graveman and Mr. Gills are one of the best administrators we have there. They always support us and, give us great advice. So
I would happen to agree with you. I also have a comment I'd like to make. Over the last few years that I've been on the board, I've seen great growth and great strength from every person that goes through those doors. I am just so happy to be part of the community that advocates for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You were free to go. You don't need to hang around for the rest of our meeting. Thank you again.
Great. And we'll move on to 7.2, our school showcase, and it is James E. Dotke High School today, so we'll welcome the team from Dotke.
Good evening. Thanks for having us today. I'm Mr. Gels, the principal, Greg Gels, sorry. I work in schools all day, right? We go by Mr. And Jason Graebner is our Dean of Students. I want to publicly thank him for all his work. He's the motor behind a lot of the things at Dotke. He does a lot of great stuff, so thank you, Jason. So we're going to go through probably 15-minute presentation, a little update on what's going on at Dotke. We also brought Pedro, a student, with us because you probably want to hear from a student more than you want to hear from us. So we'll kind of go through the nuts and bolts, but Pedro is an awesome representative of a student that is successful at Dotke and has turned things around, and so we invited him to share a little bit about his story. So we're going through today with three main pieces: bright spots, challenges, and then unique features and experiences. I'm going to go through some bright spots. Jason's going to go through some challenges, which we phrase as opportunities that all schools have. And then we'll go through some photo examples of some of the unique things going on at Dotke High School. So bright spots, the three of them are our new building, our school culture, and this high expectations with high support. And I'll go through each one of those right now. So the new building has been an amazing opportunity for our school, so thank you for that. I know that it was difficult for some members of our community and some students to transition to other buildings, but selfishly from our perspective, having the building has just changed things immensely, more than I thought that it would. So just having the new space is offering new opportunities. Leticia and Chardonnay talked about having things in our school that we've never had before. So you take sometimes those things for granted, but just having a main office and having a gymnasium and having a cafeteria that we can actually prepare food out of instead of having to cart it in through a truck every day. The kids feel special. They feel like they're part of something, and it's neat and it's powerful. And so thank you for allowing us to have a building like that. The space has been great. The space in the hallways, believe it or not, just wider hallways, larger classrooms. We can allow for different types of seating and instructional grouping, and it's been really great, and had this complete environment impact on the whole school. So I mentioned these pieces already about the new building. The next thing is school culture. Bright spots for us is school culture for sure. So our students have this new sense of belonging in this school. It's neat to see them come through the doors and feel like it's their school. The old building was a beautiful building, but it felt a little bit more like an office space than a traditional school. And that's okay, because I always thought we were different anyway, so we could have something different. But the impact of the new building's been great. The kids really are enjoying the space and their new sense of belonging. We've had a great overall school culture buy-in from students, and a lot of that really is through our first week rollout. One of our teachers, Mr. Tagmeyer, and a group of other staff in the summer said, you know what, we have a new building, we have a new opportunity, and we have a new chance to really show students what it's like to live the Dotke way and just how we do it here. So it was a group effort to get a lot of things going for the first week of school, to welcome students in. We'll talk later about how we get a lot of new students throughout the year and through the quarter. Every year we start with usually half or a little bit more than half of brand new students. So that offers some challenges, but it also offers some great opportunities to start fresh every year. So this week's been, the first week of school was really powerful. I think it was Chardonnay talked about our school theme of Own It this year. And so over the summer, Jason and I talked, and I said, one of the main things we need to get through to our students is personal responsibility. And so I used the term Own It in two different ways. One was for students to own and take personal responsibility for their successes and the good things going on in their lives. A lot of our students have not had a lot of success in different areas of their life, and when they do well, they don't even feel like it was because of them. They feel like someone helped them, or they did it, it was given in some way, or they don't deserve it. And so we're trying to instill in them that, gosh darn it, when you do something good, that's because of you. And when you do good on that project, that's because of the work you did. And when you made a good decision, that's because of you. And like just getting them to understand that, you know, they have responsibility, they have control of their lives. So in a positive way, the own it thing has really worked out. The other side of the own it is taking responsibility when we make a mistake. And so we're doing that, modeling that with students, and I think that's been powerful too. So when students are failing, that's okay, and they say, you know what, that's on me. When they make a bad decision, Jason and I ask them, you know, what part of this what role did you play? What part of this do you own? And we're getting kids to be able to move on and say, you know what, I shouldn't have responded in that way, and then we can move on, and there's a learning piece there. So in a behavior aspect, the own it piece has been really powerful. And so just in general, the personal responsibility. The other thing that Jason and I are seeing is the modeling by staff. And so in our meetings, we start off with two powerful things going on and an own it piece. And it used to be where staff would talk about a student who owned their behavior or a mistake. But now it has shifted to where staff are owning their own behavior and things. So it's really powerful, they're modeling. They're saying, oh, there was an issue in class and I responded in a certain way that might have, you know, made the problem bigger and I shouldn't have, and I apologized to the student and we talked through it. And I just think that's really neat, and the power of modeling adults to kids is amazing, and so it's neat to see that at DACI. Another thing that was mentioned for school culture is circles. We've been doing morning check-in circle for 4 or 5 years now. But what we added this year was weekly community circles. And we're too big to have like one huge circle of, let's say, 150 students. So what we do is we alternate, when we have 2 lunches, we alternate, if they're not in lunch on Tuesdays, they go to this community circle in our gym. And we have staff and students in a huge circle, which you'll see a picture of in a little bit. And it's a time for us to connect with each other, to share out and celebrations. Students recognize each other for things, staff recognize students for things, we make announcements. It's kind of a cool family feel for our circle, so that's been really neat. And then lastly, with school culture, one of the things Jason and I are proud of is our employee engagement survey results. You guys reviewed those, I'm sure, and saw that we were at the top and for employees feeling valued at school and in their jobs. Alternative education has a lot of turnover traditionally, but at DACI we've really been able to keep our staff happy, fulfilled, and feeling good about their jobs. And obviously that filters through with how they treat students and how they, you know, they teach and get kids to achieve every day. The last piece I'm going to talk about is high expectations and high support. So another bright spot that we've had is really increasing rigor at DACI the last few years. Jason's been a big part of that, and we're proud to be able to offer many of the same courses that are offered in our course catalog for our 2 comprehensive high schools. So you see 27 different courses are offered at DACI. We follow those same expectations in each course. We sometimes deliver those things in a different way, but same courses offered. We have higher level math. So this year we had students that needed pre-calc. We have a teacher that has a section of pre-calc that they teach, which has been going great. We have definitely increased our co-teaching and co-planning at DACI, so we're seeing a lot of power with working with reg ed and special ed teachers. They're planning together, they're delivering instruction together. The great news is sometimes Mr. Graebner and I will go in and if we didn't know who the teacher was, we wouldn't know if they were the regular ed teacher or the special ed teacher, and that's a great sign when it comes to co-teaching. We've had huge successes with our GED Option 2 program. Last year, Ms. Shelley LaCourte Brown graduated somewhere 40, 45 students through the GED Option 2 program. So she works in collaboration with us. So it's not like we're just sending kids to her and they pass the test that they need to graduate. But we work with the students to get their skill sets up so they can take those tests and be successful. And then finally, in the district-wide initiative with deeper learning, DACI's looking at expanding and deepening some of our own practices with project-based learning. So we're seeing students that are really getting engaged in that project-based type of work, and we as educators and our staff are training with Chris Miller and others throughout the district and elsewhere to get feeling more comfortable with project-based learning and seeing some great results. So we're looking to do more work with that as we continue next year. I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Graebner. He's going to talk about our challenges or opportunities.
Sure. So I can see from the email, or excuse me, the PowerPoint, we have identity, constantly evolving student populations, and attendance. So within this, the identity is our school goes from having about 90 returning students to adding 80 more the first day of school, to culminating in 250 by the end of the school year. So what that means is the identity of our school and what we need changes not only by student, but also by semester, by quarter, by the year. We need to be different. You know, it's an alternative school for a reason, because if it worked well for the high school, a lot of our students would need our school. So we do things differently. We also come up with the student profiles for each student to see not only what they need academically, but what they need behaviorally and socially to help them develop into the whole child, to what we're trying to meet. The panoramic results that we have on the next slide speak to what we do and what we do right. Of these measures, there was only one measure where we did not beat the district average. And that's because we really spend the time with our kids building the capacity and building the things like grit and other social, emotional learning that really comes in handy for our students, not only in our school, but also in real life. When we talked about constantly evolving student populations, it's individualizing while also keeping efficient structures. You know, with 250 students in the building, we have to make sure we don't become a mini version of the high school, but at the same time, when systems are working and are efficient, we're able to best allocate our resources of time, teachers, and money. We have a small feel because we're not the largest high school in our district, but we want to make sure that we provide those educational opportunities for all learners. Parent involvement is something we've worked on over the last couple of years to really increase so that we can get parents involved in PBIS, get parents involved in the clubs, get parents involved inside the school so that they can feel and become part of our great community. The struggle attendance is a challenge. Some of our students come to us with sometimes attendance rates as low as 20%, and we do everything we can to make sure that when they leave us, they're significantly increased, that we have significant growth in their academics, socially, and behaviorally. And that can be a real challenge with a lot of the external factors that we deal with. The increases student to student are incredible. There's some students that have come to us almost never attending, and then with us come 80%, 90% of the time, and it really makes a big difference. And what we always talk about is how does that happen? What's the connections we make at school? It's the handshakes, the fist bumps, hey, I noticed you weren't here yesterday, where were you? We missed you. And making sure they understand that every single student that walks through Dockey High School, Mr. Gels and I look at it like they're our own kids. Okay?
All right, before Pedro, I'm going to go through some unique features and experiences. So I thought I'd do that through photos. So if you can look up on the screen, what makes us different and unique, all kinds of stuff. Like Mr. Gravener said, we have to be different. So a lot of these things are different. Our schedule is different. You see on the bottom left, our Thanksgiving meal was super powerful and awesome. Thank you for those that were able to come. We do things outside of school. You see ropes course with team building, canoe, field trip, photo there. Huge on service learning and community partners. That's a weekly visit to one of the senior living facilities in West Dallas. Blood drives we talked about, crew challenges. These are just more photos of things that make us unique and different. Making fun of myself on the bottom right there. I'm not usually wearing a headband. We found some old Lincoln jerseys, and the teachers put them on and played the students, which we beat them 2 out of 3 games, just for the record. Make sure Suzette puts that in the minutes. And then you see the shout-out. We just started a shout-out kind of program for students, and as staff, we're constantly recognizing the positive things they're doing, but we know the power of students recognizing each other. So we have a bit.ly link and a QR code that students can actually go into and recognize each other for doing great things. And this was a shot, the first week that we did this, we post them up, and in between classes, you know, we catch them doing things when they don't think they're watching, and they're all looking to see if their name was up on this list. So they might be, they think they're big, mature high school or grown-up kids, but they are still kids at heart, and they like to be recognized for things. So the shout-outs has been kind of powerful. I took this today, this photo. You see that the shout-outs there's so many of them we couldn't fit them on the bulletin board, and that's a great problem to have. So that was a picture from earlier this afternoon. Not letting me advance. Here we go. Just a couple shots of what makes us different and unique for staff. We recognize each other. The bottom left is a Phoenix Phenom card. We recognize each other for doing cool things and put it in the mailbox, and that's a nice thing for teachers to have when they show up. And once in a while we have a rough day, and when we do, there's a Phoenix Phenom card or something in there that's recognizing what we're doing. A traveling trophy for staff of the week. We just are a close-knit, family when it comes to our staff, so we're really proud of that. This is just a shot of one of our first community circles, just for you to get a visual of what it looks like when you have like 80 students in chairs. We hadn't gotten settled yet in this shot, but everyone is typically in the circle, sitting down and able to see each other and be a part of it. So something we started in the beginning of the year. It is slowly but surely gaining momentum. It's hard to get students of high school age to be sitting together and sharing out things, but every week's getting a little bit better, so we're going to keep at that. It's pretty powerful and neat. Last thing, I wanted to show one of the things when we talk about creating community and interesting things and things that are unique. Some of you might have heard that we created a VIP space in our cafeteria, so that's what this is. This is the Lincoln cafeteria that had wrestling mats in it, and we changed it over Christmas break, and this is what the kids found when they came after Christmas break. They found a VIP room, lounge full of all donated items and items that we fundraised for, so there was not any cost to our school or our district. But it's a cool space that students, again, we use the shout-outs, they recognize each other, and then Mr. Grabner and our PBIS team pick kids that get to sit there during lunch, and then they pick friends of theirs that can sit with them during lunch. So you see there's a donated flat-screen TV that kids can actually live stream, like, you know, videos or sport clips or whatever they want to watch, and it's just their own little space. And so I had to get the red velvet ropes because I thought any VIP lounge needs red velvet ropes. So just something that, again, makes it different and unique. And one of the things that was cool when the kids walked in the first day was they said, you know, we've never had this at any of our other schools. And we said, you know what, that's the payoff for us, is always doing something different and unique, because, you know, if we want different results, we have to do things differently. So just another example of the culture that we're trying to create at Docky, and really seeing a lot of successes with the family feel that we're having. These are a couple of the winners. Hey, Chardonnay was in there. It was the first day, and I said, you're the first winners. I have to get a picture in action of the people in the VIP lounge, and they thought they were pretty cool. So we can take questions, or Pedro's going to give a little short overview of just his story. How do you want to do that? Anybody? Pedro?
You got this.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Pedro Gonzalez. I just came here today to speak upon how Docky High School has helped me expand in my education and as a person. You know, I went from being a student who never attended school at all. I kind of had a rough patch in my life during my beginning of my sophomore year. I stopped attending school after about a month or so. Things kind of became, I was originally attended Central High School, and it really wasn't that good of a fit for me. You know, I wasn't really talking to students. Teachers were just, they wouldn't mind me at all. I was just another student who was just barely getting by, average grades, maybe C's and D's. And it just became, it wasn't interesting to me at all. It was boring, in words. So I kind of made the choice upon myself to be like, I'm not going to go to school anymore. And during that period of time, I began to notice how much education in school was really going to support me throughout life. I noticed that there was other family members of mine who hadn't graduated school, and they weren't really doing anything with their lives. They were just sitting in the same rut for years on end, and they would always complain about, oh, I could have done this, I could have done that, I could be here, I could be there. Well, why didn't you do it in the first place? And I've taken all of the advice and words that people have given me into consideration. I've really thought about them. So over the course of the summer, I made a choice to attend school again, more towards the last few weeks of the fourth quarter of school. During that time, I was having a rough patch with my mom. Me and her were constantly going back and forth. And a week after my 16th birthday, unfortunately, I was kicked out of my house. And during that period of time, my aunt and my uncle, which my aunt is sitting in the rows today, right there, she accepted me into her home, a 16-year-old kid who had nothing besides the clothes on his back and a bag of clothes with him. And, I really appreciated it, so I had to show her that I have to, make something of myself and prove everybody who thought that I wasn't going to be nothing wrong. So during that period of time of being kicked out, I attended summer school, caught back up on some of the credits that I needed to be. And when the school year came around, I've attended every single day of school so far this year. I'm a straight A student as of second quarter. I'm passing all my grades. I'm getting all good grades in all my classes. and I'm a positive community member to our school also. I get to show the students that, you know, even when you come from tough beginnings, that you can always make it through, because you got to be the one willing to put effort and time into, you know, really expanding on whatever you want to do. You know, you can't let anything stop you. You're your own person, and you have to make decisions and choices in life to become greater. And with this year, you know, Docky really accepting me and not denying me of coming back to school. You know, they come, Mr. Gravener and Mr. Gals, they welcomed me with open arms and told me, this is a new year, fresh start, you know. Everything that happened last year, you don't have to worry about it. That's all in the past, you know. Put it behind us. And this year, I made a promise to them that I'm going to end the school year with good grades, caught up with all my credits, and I'm going to prove a point that I can actually do it. And I've been keeping up with my promise so far. I've been doing everything that I promised and more. You know, it wasn't mentioned, but on Christmas, we all had a big assembly within the gymnasium. And during that time, I actually volunteered to be Santa at school. Yeah, so you guys can imagine it, a big 6'6" Santa walking around the school, going ho, 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 ringing some sleigh bells. You know, none of the students knew either. That was the cool thing. It just happened that day. I was sitting there, and I got Mr. Gramer came into the classroom, and I was like, hey, you think I could be Santa? He goes, let me talk to Mr. Gals, and we'll see what can happen. So I'm in crew, we're sitting down, everybody's in there, we're eating our pizza, having a good time, and Mr. Gravener comes in. It's time. I'm like, yes. So I run upstairs with him into his office, and I get ready. All the students are inside the gymnasium. Mr. G, Leticia, everybody, they're in there giving a good presentation. Leticia even did a dance for us. It was good. And when we were in there, none of the students were expecting me to come in there and be Santa. So I'm sitting there in a corner, and Mr. Gales gets up after all the presentations and everything are finished, and he goes, all right, everybody, we have a special guest. Everybody's just sitting there. Santa, everybody. And I come out of nowhere, ringing sleigh bells, everybody was singing, ho, 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 Merry Christmas. I could see the expressions on all the students. They smiles everywhere. I mean, it was nothing like nothing else I'd ever seen before. And as I'm up on the center stage, I sit down and I read Silent Night to the entire school. Honestly, I never thought I would hear the entire high school completely quiet. Like, it was so quiet you could hear a mouse squeak within the school. And all the students attending, that's something I never thought would actually happen. So it was actually, you know, a really amazing day, a really good 3 days before Christmas, you know, leading into Christmas break. And I'm just thankful for Mr. Gravener and Mr. Gals for giving me the opportunity to do that. You know, not every school really pays attention to their students like Docky does. They really put the time and effort into each and every one of their students. Like, you walk into the building, and they know every single kid's name. What other high school do you know that like really knows that? Especially the principal. You're just normally in other high schools you walk around, you're just another face in the hallways. No, Mr. Gals, hey, how you doing? You do everything good today? Well, weren't you here yesterday? So what's happening, you know? And he goes around, he really makes us feel welcomed, you know? We're not there to be at their school like if it's just another, like, jail cell almost, you know, sitting in each class. No, see, and the class, too. Teachers make it fun to learn. They're not sitting there doing, you know, common, basic education standards. You know, they're going along the guidelines and everything, but they like to mix it up a little bit. They like to get those kids, you know, interacted with what they're doing. They like to make everybody feel really welcome in that field. Like, you know, as long as you put in some effort, we're going to make sure you pass, no matter what, you know. And that's really appreciated because I know when I was at Central, I wasn't really getting attention like how I needed to be. And that was probably one of the reasons why I left. But it was not, you know, it was nothing that I could do. It was in such a large school, and that's probably the main reason why I wasn't a good fit, you know. So many kids, me not being able to get the attention I needed for the classwork that I needed help on made it a difficulty. So me being able to go to Docky and, you know, missing so much time and then still them welcoming back like if nothing ever happened made me feel special. You know, they showed me that I can be who I want when I want to, as long as I put the work in, you know? And they're offering us so much within the classrooms and also outside of the classrooms. They offer extracurricular activities outside of the class. You know, Mr. Farm, a teacher of ours, he offers guitar club every Thursday. Yeah, guitar club. There used to be Frisbee golf too, but, you know, due to weather, that got canceled. You know, 9 months, that's what I say. But that's 9 months of snow, 3 months of sun, you know. Wisconsin. So you know, and besides that too, you know, there's a group within our school called Divas, the Divas group, and that's led by Miss HB. And that's it's her crew. She calls it the Divas because it's her and a crew full of females, young ladies. And there's also a group of young males that get together with HBs on Wednesday, and it's called Legacy. And those are the males that are going to be, you know, leaving behind a legacy within the school. You know, I don't like to say like top kids, but in my opinion, we're the top of the top. You know, if you didn't get asked to be within the group, obviously you didn't meet the standards that they obviously wanted. So with those groups, you know, they help us. You know, they talk about you know, things with sexuality, you know, most things that don't get talked about in the common classroom. You know, they go ask you how's life doing, you know, outside of school. You know, they really get to make sure that your well-being is okay. You know, you as a person, you know that you can move forward another day, knowing that you have somebody there to really help you, and you know, they're concerned about you. You know, most people don't get that offered in homes too. You know, they go home and it's like their parents are just like, oh, okay, you're home, whatever. I'll see you tomorrow, I guess, you know. Or some kids don't get to show up to a good meal. You know, Daki offers us breakfast every morning, hot breakfast, and also cereal. And they offer lunches every day. And about a good 95% of the kids there get free lunch. And also, too, for the later students that show up later on in the day, they get dinner. What other schools, you know, really offer that you know, how they do? They also offer us, you know, time to where we can, in between lunch periods, where we can also buy drinks within the school. They have, you know, helps make some extra money. You know, everything really helps. Daki, to me, is a school that really is different from everybody else because they're there for the students and not just there because it's their job. They actually like to show up every day and teach, you know. I've actually get to talk to the teachers and really have one-on-one time with them, and they get to, you know, every time I speak to them, they tell me, well, it's not just another day here at school. Every day is a new day for me because I never know what's going to happen with the students this time, you know. Everything is always new. You know, the students' reactions are always different. The way the students treat each other are always different, but that's what they're there for because they like how students are not, you know, not to themselves, you know. Students at Daki are very open. They're open-minded. They're not the ones to sit there and keep something to themselves. They're going to go there and they're going to speak their mind and really be like, you know, try to hold a conversation. Try to make sure that, you know, you hear both sides of the conversation. You know, you're not just one to be stuck on one side and be like, oh, you know, no, I can't agree with you upon what you're saying. No, they're really going to sit there. They're going to try to get into your shoes and feel what you feel so that they can help you, you know, become something more. And that's what I appreciate about Daki because, you know, I never had a good relationship with my parents like that. And, you know, I appreciate for everything that my parents have done, but Daki has shown me that I can really be somebody important. And that even if there's not somebody, you know, who's supporting me at home, I got somebody who's supporting me at school. And I thank them very much for that. And I thank them for all the opportunities that they've given me.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you
very much.
Pedro, your comments, you are so to be commended for. A mature young man, very well thought, very well spoken. There are times we as board members that it can be trying and very frustrating. Your story makes it all worthwhile. Because that's what we're here for. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff. Pedro, I think you're, as we speak here, or you speak here tonight, you're creating your own legacy. People in life sometimes hit a crossroads, and you've accomplished that as a young adult and known which way to go. You've had an awful lot of people helping you along with family. I think it's important when you have family and when you can rely on your family as well as the people that you're at school with. As far as the Santa Claus thing, you keep that and keep doing it because you keep it near and dear to your heart because you're going to realize if you keep playing Santa Claus that you're going to open up some minds and some hearts of young people. You at this point in your life, I hope you choose an area where you can do some public speaking because you're very good at it. And you don't use a lot of ahs and ns and hms. You just roll. Thank you very much for presenting.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Noel?
I think really you should bring Pedro for all of your meetings. I think that, he's a great spokesperson for Docky High School and what, the school provides for you. I think that, Pedro, you could be a motivational speaker. The way that you just kind of launched into your life story and how that wraps into Docky and how that's helped you is very powerful. It really does push forward, what our goal is here in the district and what Docky's goal is for all of your students. And it really brings forward that personal story that sometimes is lacking in what we as a district can put forth. Only you can provide that story. And so I commend you again for, as others have, for your articulation of that. And really you embody what the word resilience means. You went through rough patches and you looked around you and said, well, where am I going to end up? I don't want to end up where some other people I know are, and so what am I going to do about it? Because it really has to start here, and that's what resilience is about. That's what we're trying to build here in the district and with all of the students that we have, but really are an embodiment of that. So I want to congratulate you on making those decisions yourself and pulling yourself up by the bootstraps, as the old saying goes, and getting yourself where you need to be so you can be successful in doing what you want to do, which is what our goal is as educators. I'm not an educator, but as the district is trying to do for you. So thank you very much.
Brian?
I just wanted to kind of comment on the point that you had brought up about how you had struggled at Central a little bit and then had the opportunity to go to Docky. And I think the reality of the situation is that school can't be a one-size-fits-all approach. A typical high school is not going to necessarily work for everybody, and that's why it's great that we have Docky here, where you and other students can have a little bit more of a smaller community, more of a hands-on approach where really everybody knows each other. And I think that's the other point to point out is the community there. In the experiences that I've had there, and I was there for your Thanksgiving celebration as well, was it feels like everybody really has each other's back. Everybody is there cheering each other on and rooting each other on, and I think that's great. That's going to only help you to become more successful. So I just wanted to speak to both of those things, and you've done a very good job speaking and presenting yourself. Thank you.
Heather?
Just a quick comment. I've had the privilege of being able to drive a lot of the field trips this year, and I told the gentleman, feel free to request me anytime. And I just have to tell a story about Pedro, is there had been a mess on my bus because they're teenagers and they make a mess, and no one would own up to it. And Pedro came back on my bus and not only picked everything up, he swept the entire bus for me that day. So that just speaks to your character. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Wow.
Yep, awesome. Great job.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for
I
coming.
told you Pedro would steal the show.
He's got good leaders.
Stole the show.
Yeah, it's hard to go on now.
We're done. Motion to adjourn.
So I'll go on with 7.3, the legislative update. You have the document. I'm just going to highlight a couple of things here. Again, the Blue Ribbon Commission on School Funding is continuing to hold meetings and conversations, and we'll see what recommendations start to emerge from that. We mentioned before, but Governor Scott Walker and now Dr. Tony Evers are both requesting special legislative packages around school safety. And Tony Evers in particular is really trying to take a more comprehensive approach. So seeking dollars that would allow school districts to exceed the revenue limit for physical safety and environmental changes, and then additional dollars for school safety expenditures that would include behavioral and mental health, climate and culture. So you heard a lot about Docky and the way they work on school culture. And then also work in policies and procedures that help us maintain safety in buildings. So we're going to watch all of that very carefully, because we've talked about, and I've made the board aware we're doing an audit of our kind of safety infrastructure, and are there enhancements we can make, but if there are going to be additional dollars, I think there are many things we'd like to do. Then Assembly Bill 999, this is one that would permit an individual to receive an initial license as a special education teacher if that person successfully completes a course in the teaching of reading and reading comprehension. And so a little bit of an approach to start to fill in some of the pipeline. They still have to go on and complete their full certification, but an initial license to begin teaching. And if you're going down the path of potentially becoming a reading teacher, it's not a bad place to begin. And there are districts even that are trying to pursue every teacher being a reading teacher. So this is one of those kind of pipeline initiatives that is coming through in policy, and we'll see where that one goes. And then there's nothing new at the federal level at this point. Some congratulations to some of our athletes from Central and Nathan Hale for Central High School All-Woodland Conference list for this year. In boys basketball, Jacob Fierst, second team All-Conference. Glenn Martin, honorable mention All-Conference. Deonde Vancelo, senior scholar athlete, and Trayvon Davis, senior scholar athlete. In girls basketball, Cookie Powell, second time All-Conference and senior scholar athlete. Then at Nathan Hale High School, all Greater Metro Conference list. In girls basketball, Elisa Cruz, first team. Kelly Ann Sotiros, second team. Joey Bursick, honorable mention. Abby Arena, honorable mention. And Abby Stevens, honorable mention. In boys basketball, Emerald Martin, honorable mention. Joe Schultz, honorable mention. And Javon Taylor, honorable mention. And then scholar athletes, wrestling, Peyton Mako and Brandon Baltz. Gymnastics, Olivia DeFay. In girls basketball, Zoe Burchick, Kellyanne Sotiros, Madeline Lawson, Kristen Swofford, Abigail Arena, and boys basketball scholar athlete Daniel Tabaskin. And then just a couple quick updates from me. There were no public comments on February 26th. The board's aware, and I think many members of the community are aware that there's a national school walkout plan for March 14th, and we've communicated now with staff and parents and the larger community through press. It's been interesting to me is that this is one of the moments, and I explained this to principals when we did some planning around it and some brainstorming, and this is one of those moments that no matter what you decide to do, you're going to be wrong. It's just one of those in leadership, and you just have to go into it with your eyes open knowing that. But the plan that's emerged here is quite consistent with plans that you're reading about in the paper and other school districts and high schools in the area. And so far, since last Friday, we've had 3 responses from the community that were less than supportive. And I'll just leave it there. But it's only 3. And we know that that's going to be part of it. But for us, it's, we're being clear. We can't endorse students walking out from school. Our expectation is kids are in school. But when there's national momentum behind something like this, well, teenagers are going to participate, right? Whether we have a plan or don't have a plan, they're going to participate. So I think then it's our responsibility to make sure that if they do participate, we have a plan, and it's a plan that ensures they're safe, right? And that's what we've tried to do, and try to really tap student voice in each of the buildings, have our principals meet with their student government leaders, and they've built a plan in each building that'll be a little different. The way Central will look and the way Hale will look on March 14th will be a little different. But then we're also sending district staff from here. We all have assignments for that, hour, and so we get there about 9:30 through till about 10:30, and our plan is that everything goes back to normal. And so I think, we've developed, I think, a reasonable approach to this. A couple other updates. The sale of our building, so this one and the former Dotke next door, is still moving forward. We're making plans now to further consolidate, so we still have the tech program on the 3rd floor and a couple offices. They're going to be moving to the 6th floor. It'll mean that the board meals will change a little bit now because we're going to need that space as office space. But finalizing consolidation, and we can continue to use the 7th floor until the new owners would lease that out, and we've got a contingency plan about where we'd move furnishings until we have meeting space that we would use those furnishings in again. On March 20th, I'm pretty sure I have the date right, that's when the city of West Allis and the developers, so the developer that's buying our property and developing all of this, including MATC, is partnering, and the developer across the street are going to be announcing a pretty grand plan. And I think it's interesting that we're not formally a part of that plan, but we're kind of the spark. That the fact that we really needed to sell the building has created a spark that I think is going to turn into something really big for this community. So I think it's going to be exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing kind of what the plans are at this point. And then a last little announcement, parent satisfaction survey that opens again in April. So we continue to do surveys of parents and employees around our continuous improvement efforts. And I know Beth has got a whole communication plan ready to roll with that, but it just so that it's on your radar as well. And that ends the superintendent's report.
Thanks. We'll move on to the president's report. Before I get into the calendar, just a few announcements. I'd like to give a shout out, thank you to the staffs at Frank Lloyd Wright, Jefferson, Wilson, and Franklin for inviting me to read at their building during the Read Across America Day. And March 24th, Saturday evening, March 24th, at the Zufari Center is the West Allis Community Improvement Foundation Dinner Dance. Tickets can still be purchased either through Suzette or Jeanette at the City Hall. Cost of the tickets is $75. The dance begins at 6 p.m. The music will be provided by our own Shining Strings, and they also have a silent auction at that affair. And on April 27th, that Friday evening, the West Allis Monogram Club has their annual scholarship dance, and that is at the Knights of Columbus, and the doors open at 7, and the music starts at 7:30. And it just happens I have tickets here available if anybody's interested. Tickets are $10, and that goes to their scholarship fund, and a reminder that the club gives out 12 $1,000 scholarships, 6 to each high school, which is a pretty good sum for a club that only has about 18 members. But it's only 2 events that we sponsor. If you take a look at your calendar, following this evening's meeting, we have a business services workshop dealing with enrollment and staffing. After that, we have a closed session meeting. Next Monday, the 19th at 6 o'clock, we have a CISA services workshop. Then on Monday, March 26th at 6 o'clock, we have a regular Board of Education meeting. And Monday, April 9th, our regular Board of Education meeting, followed by business services workshop, food service, and wellness center. Just a reminder that all of our meetings are open to the public and that our workshops are open to the public, but they are not televised. Any board members have community announcements? Sue?
Well, you're way more popular than I am, because I only got invited to Jefferson to read.
Oh.
So,
Well, the other ones I taught it, so they know me.
oh, that's it. Okay. You were talking about a scholarship, the Monogram Scholarship, and I'd like to mention that the Women's Club Scholarship Luncheon, their salad luncheon is April 4th, and it's their biggest event, and it's solely for our students for scholarship, so it's very important. And then the PTA is having a candidate forum for the people who are hoping to be elected for next year, which is the 14th at 7 o'clock right here, in this administration room, so that, and everybody is invited. And then the Youth Commission is having their youth a candidate forum, which is also for the school board, and that would be held at City Hall on Monday, the 26th, at 6 o'clock. So, and everybody is welcome to attend, and I think both of them will be televised.
Actually, the Youth Commission is on Wednesday, the 28th, because we have a board meeting that evening, so it's actually Wednesday, the 28th.
Correct.
Oh, it's been moved and I didn't realize it.
Oh, no, our letter said the 28th.
Oh, well,
Correct.
then I wrote it on the wrong date.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for,
Sure. Make sure you're at the right date.
yes, you know, it's not
Dan?
been,
Did your hand up?
I did, thank you. I just wanted to make a quick mention that the rec department did have their committee meeting, and all of you should have received an email in regards to what we discussed and what the future looks for as far as the rec department goes. If you didn't receive your emails, I will make sure that you get one, so let me know.
Don't
Should have
remember
gone
getting
out.
one.
Yeah, it should have gone
I don't
out.
think we got one.
It should have gone out, and I will take care of that for you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Heather?
This coming weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, is Central's play. They're doing 2 plays. The first one is The Complaint Department in Lemonade, and the second one is Not My Cup of Tea. One's a comedy, one's a dark comedy, I understand. That's 7:30 Friday and Saturday, and 2 p.m. on Sunday. And then this coming Wednesday is also the Future Chef Sodexo at Hale at 5:30? Is that when it starts?
Yeah. 5:30 to 6:30.
And I am the judge for that.
So am I. I'm excited.
Again.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. There's 2 items this evening. 9.1, the approval of the minutes from our February 26th regular board meeting, and 9.2, the employment summary and supplemental contracts. Any board members need either of those separated? Okay, we can take those as a,
Move to approve?
Second.
thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay? That passes. We'll move on to action items. We have three this evening. Number 10.1, the new board policy, number 345.7, the transcripted credits for intermediate school levels, and this is a first reading.
Hello, everybody. So a little background, I know that was in the executive summary, but just to share is Adam and I started working on a policy to do some transcripting of credits at the intermediate level shortly after we started in our position, so a little over a year ago. And we were looking at area districts to look at what their policies were. We got consulted with DPI. We checked Act 138, which is the statute that actually allows you to do this sort of transcripting. And at that time, we were given some advice to slow down because the difficulty that other districts in our area were having and that we were having was with this idea that if we transcripted credits at the intermediate level, the difficulty was students not taking math shortly before they went on if they chose to do a post-secondary institution was creating a gap in the scores in math for students who were going on to colleges. And we had gotten a report a couple of years ago, and we haven't seen the report since, which this had us kind of questioning that, in the number of students from each district in our area who were requiring remedial math and English courses when they hit the four-year college level. And ours was pretty high. It was higher than we were comfortable with. It was one of the highest ones in the area, and we didn't like that. So we started brainstorming, what is it that we're missing, what do we need to do? And as you guys know, we did quite a bit of revamping to the math department and the math sequencing at the intermediate and the high school to hopefully resolve that problem. But the other piece of data that we were finding out is that we had quite a few students who were stopping taking math as soon as the requirement was met at the high school after their junior year. And some of our students were taking a math series that we didn't feel really stood behind what we say is adequate for being college and career ready. So we switched the math series and eliminated a few of the kind of elective math courses that really weren't as rigorous as we would like to see them be. And on top of it, we really started working with our counselors to have them make sure that they're recommending that students actually not just take the required 3 years of math in high school, but they take all 4 years of math. And in the meantime, we went back and made sure that any of the AP courses that we have at the high school level are weighted to account for the fact that those classes are significantly more difficult sometimes than the other coursework. So those are weighted into students' GPAs as they go through their high school experience. So then in the last year, DPI has done some shifts and some changes in what used to be youth options, which really said you had to exhaust all the way through your whole math series or your whole foreign language series or whatever it was, and then you could apply and take coursework at the local colleges, and that's been switched to Start College Now is how it's framed. And it really is designed to make sure that most students, more students than we're accessing youth options, are accessing a college level course at some point during their high school career. That's what it's really designed to do, is open up those opportunities for students. So that's really what made us go back to this idea of thinking about being able to transcript some credits at the intermediate level, as well as some encouragement from community members, one of which spoke tonight, saying, hey, we're really interested in knowing if the district has a policy like that. That communication happened at the same time that we got the information on what youth options was going to become. So it made some sense to bring it back to the table. But we still had the same issue with it, that if we have students taking math work in intermediate school, and then they don't take math after then, freshman or sophomore year of high school, the idea that they would then be prepared to go directly into the workforce or go into MATC or go into the military or do whatever it was that their post-secondary plan was, especially if they decided at that point to go on to a 4-year post-secondary institution, they wouldn't be very prepared. So we spent a lot of time talking about it and trying to figure out what's the reasonable negotiation. Adam spoke to curriculum directors from 4 or 5 districts on what they were doing. One of them does a contract, so that if you get any credits transcripted at the middle school level, you sign a contract saying you'll commit to taking math all the way through high school. We decided eventually just to wrap it right into the policy. And so that's why the graduation requirement is still embedded in the policy, even if students get those courses transcripted at the middle school. The intent of transcripting them at the middle school is to make sure that we're giving those students, especially those that are ready for it and are at that advanced level in particular courses, the opportunity to participate and start college now, right, which is an option. It doesn't mean families have to take that opportunity to participate in that, but our goal is to grow more and more students who are ready to do that. So we'll see quite a few more students who are taking algebra as 8th graders. We'll see quite a few more students in the next 2 years that are ready to take geometry as 8th graders, which puts them in that trajectory to be able to participate in that Start College Now program when it comes to math. It is not that you can't transcript credits for other coursework. Math is just the one where math and foreign language are the ones that it tends to be far more likely. So the policy in front of you addresses just that. It addresses the fact that it is within the recommendation of Act 138, which we typically, districts start with the recommendation from DPI and they make adjustments as they need to, that the coursework not count towards the GPA. That's actually right in the statute, that it's their recommendation that it not count towards the GPA. And that also, that you figure out a way to have students continue along the trajectory. So that's the policy as it's written. I know Pat mentioned she had a little language that she'd like us to play with that I encouraged her to share when we were with the whole group. And then we're open to any questions and any feedback.
Pat, you want to address that?
I would, yes, on the page 1 of 1, your second page of the handout, between the bulleted areas where it starts with pupils who earn high school credit for students, it should be for subjects taken. Students is there twice, at the beginning and in the middle. So if we change the wording, my suggestion would be that pupils who earn high school credit for subjects taken in the 7th and 8th grade, and then go down to the next statement, will need to follow the graduation policy that includes the following requirements. So we would be striking in the first sentence at the end, who are eligible for high school credit, because that also is in the very first part of the sentence. There's 2 redundancies in there. Would you like it read again? Pupils who earn high school credit for subjects taken in the 7th and 8th grades will still need to follow the graduation policy that includes the following credit requirements. And then the bullets are as follows. And I'll pass it down, so. And I'm open to anything else you might feel doesn't seem to fit the way I suggested.
Yeah, Noah?
So just to be clear, this says students who earn high school credit, or I'm sorry, pupils who earn high school credit for classes taken in 7th and 8th grade, but we just said that it wouldn't be for high school credit.
It is for high school credit, right?
So it would count towards their high school GPA?
It would, but the credits do not calculate into the high school GPA.
Okay. So I can see the concern with that possibly, because obviously those are going to be the easier classes, and so students who are doing well in math would presumably do well in those classes as well. So that does penalize them in their high school transcript, because that GPA, which might be a little bit lower when they're taking a more advanced high school math class, would be lower compared to their peers. So it is something that I don't disagree with as far as that point. So I don't know if, I envision this as one of two paths. Someone who is going to take a lot of math and wants to get the earlier math classes out of the way sooner so they can take those upper level classes, or people who want to get the math out of the way because they're not envisioning math as something that's going to be high in their priority for whatever they're going to do next in their career and want to focus on other things. So for the person who's going to take math all the way through, making them take math through 3 years in high school isn't going to bother them, because they would have done that anyways, because they would probably go on and do college classes. But for those who are trying to get out of the way, they are then going to have to be taking classes that are maybe above what they would ever want to take, would ever want to need to use in their life, and probably wouldn't do that well at maybe in general, because that's, again, not what they're going to be best at. So that is kind of, they wouldn't take that option, and then just say, well, I'll just wait and I'll take it in high school, so then I can just make sure that 2 of the 3 credits that I want to take are the classes, I don't want to say they're easier, but that everyone has to take no matter what, versus then having to take Algebra 2 or trigonometry or some higher level courses. So how can we weigh that out the best? Can we play with language to include some caveats for those sorts of things, involve maybe counseling, the school counselors to maybe have input on what the student wants to do with their life, because we have these requirements for graduation, I understand them, but not every pathway is going to require upper-level math for someone who's going to go on to do something else.
Yeah, so I think some of we have to only offer courses that are in the course catalog, right? But we have some flexibility around how some of those courses are offered and the way in which they're offered at the high schools, which would not necessarily mean that the only trajectory would be to take some of that advanced and upper level math. The challenge with not making it required to take the 3 years of math in high school is, for those of you who haven't taken a math course since you were in college or since you were in high school, when you try to do homework with your own children, you know what that's like, right? You don't remember it, and it's very difficult for some of those things to come back, and they always come back eventually, right? But probably not as sharp as they did when you were active in working in those classes in a school setting. And that's what you're really trying to avoid, that gap that kids have when they leave high school by not having taken math for the 4 years of high school or for the 3 years of high school. It would not surprise me if the state comes out with a recommendation within the next several years that students actually have to take 4 years of math at the high school level, right? Because that's what the data is telling the state, is that our gap in math compared to where we'd like it to be across the state is not exactly where we want it. And so that's the challenge with it. Also, it's in the year in which students take the ACT, especially if they are four-year college-bound students, and need that score to get into a college. It's just not best practice for them to have not taken any math in the year in which they're taking that exam or doing other things. And it's not that families can't supplement that or take a tutoring course or do other things, but it really should be part of that experience that we're offering at the high school, which is why we just wouldn't recommend a policy that allows for students to not still take 3 years of math. What that math looks like when they get to the high school, or if we need to consider offering more math electives, we're going down the road of looking at math in a much more creative lens than we have in the last couple of years, based on the way we rewrote Intro to Math apps, based on the way that we have the recommendation coming out of for the core resource for math at the high schools probably will be very different than what we've seen in the past based on where they're sitting, which then should open us up those opportunities to maybe do some more things that are elective type credits. At any time, if it is about one individual student, the state allows for individual students to get individual consideration, right? And so you can choose to make an exception to following the board policy for someone's graduation if they come to as a request to the school board. That's actually allowed within the statute. So if somebody had some unusual or rare circumstances by which they'd want consideration, there are avenues for that as well.
Steph?
The requirement in order to be allowed to even take the classes in intermediate school is, other than you have to have a teacher and you have to have, the appropriate course, but we're only relying on a state test, or not, because that's currently how it's written, right? That the pupil's performance on a state examination or similar examination approved by the school board to demonstrate that they're academically prepared. So if a student is working accelerated in, say, 6th grade math, and they start 7th grade math before 6th grade's done, and now in 7th grade they've been able to complete 8th grade math, but maybe they didn't score so well on forward or what have you, but now they've basically finished 8th grade math before 7th grade's over. So what's that pathway look like then? Would they be a student that would be eligible to take high school algebra, even though maybe their state examination didn't qualify them? Bless you.
Yeah, bless you. So the part where it says another exam approved by the school board, you guys have approved the use of MAPS.
Okay.
Right, so we would use MAPS. If the student can't demonstrate those skills on some sort of examination outside of the classroom, which very likely that they would be able to, then the teacher looks at the assessments that are built within the math series to make some determinations. But we haven't had anybody yet who has even moved forward that doesn't show pretty high scores on MAPS. We have had some for whom it doesn't translate to forward. Those are things buildings are actively working on as we speak, because sometimes our MAP scores and our forward exam scores don't say this, tell the same picture. But we have not yet had one that the MAP score was not pretty indicative of the student's strengths and would have allowed them to continue moving forward.
Okay.
Brian?
Point of clarification, so if they're able to earn high school credit, in 7th and 8th grade for taking these classes, but that doesn't count toward the math requirement. Does that count toward the electives? Okay, so they would still then hypothetically, if they take one in 7th and one in 8th, they would have 2 credits of their requirement completed before starting high school.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Heather?
I just wanted to talk a little bit about the GPA and the concern there. You had talked about the AP courses being weighted, but some of our math courses in the past have been weighted, like our Algebra 2 with trig was weighted. So if you did algebra in 7th grade, geometry in 8th grade, you go into your freshman year in high school, Algebra 2 with trig would have been weighted, so you wouldn't be getting the same grade as someone who took algebra.
We're double checking on whether Algebra 2 with trig is weighted. I don't remember that being in our list of weighted courses, but we'll check. Could be.
As 2 parents that just went through it.
Yeah,
You think it is? Okay, okay. I trust you, because you're probably closer to seeing it on a transcript more recently than I am. But I want to make sure it's in the course catalog as such, because we have had a few unfortunate miscommunications. We had cleared up that it wasn't on the middle school course requests for foreign language to count for a credit, and then somehow that still went out in the way that we didn't ask for it to go forward. So we just wanted to double check that it's actually in the course catalog as such, because otherwise that's inconsistent. But I would say yes, there are other, because that's a whole can of worms.
Algebra 2 with trig,
Yeah,
yes. Algebra 2, no.
Yeah.
Algebra 2, not Algebra 2 with trig. So those courses are also weighted. Again, it's to balance out that whole idea, right? That if you take a course that we know is far more rigorous and far more challenging, then it is weighted in your GPA, because in fairness, you're not comparing apples to apples when you look at 3 math credits in these math classes and these 3 credits in these math classes. The level of rigor is just different.
Anyone else? Dan?
So this will, excuse me, this will possibly clear up some questions that were presented us tonight in regards to this?
I would say some of, our justification for why the policy is written the way it is, hopefully answers some questions.
Okay, thank you.
Noah, do you have your hand?
Stephanie did first.
Thank you. So will the 7th or 8th grader taking a high school course, will that course in middle school be weighted?
No. No, but they also wouldn't be, they would be we don't offer honors courses at the middle school level as we sit here today. We haven't had a need to do, we don't have a student that far into the math sequence right now while we still have an active policy.
Okay.
Excuse me, before we have an active policy. We do have one student taking some college-level math requirements right now, but those right now are just simply, that's what that student is taking for math. There's no credit earned behind those, and therefore there's no consideration for those courses to be weighted. Start College Now actually helps us quite a bit clarify some of what's going on with that particular student. Because previously under youth options, you couldn't have taken those college level courses until at least 11th grade, and Start College Now gives us some more flexibility to have students start taking those college level courses when they're ready to. Still needing to be in 9th grade to take that level of advanced course. And then anything taken beyond, at the college level is a weighted course when it comes to the transcripting it back into the high school.
Okay, thank you.
Point of clarification on Brian's question. He had asked if the math classes are not considered credit for high school math, but they are considered credit for high school elective. So it's an elective credit in high school. So it is counting towards the high school GPA.
It's not counting towards, it's not factored into the GPA the way the policy is written. Not because it's an elective, because it's a course taken outside of the sequence at the high school. And that's something that, I don't know, that is typically what the recommendation is from DPI and how policies are written. There's nobody in the area that has a policy that allows for it to be into the GPA that we have seen. So we're following suit with that. If that's a consideration that people are looking for, certainly something we can investigate.
All right, I'm still not comfortable with I think that we're gonna have situations where our students who are not interested in the higher level math and just want to be done with math because they're not going to see it moving forward. And if we are going to put this in policy, I would like to see a path for those students that is other than just the individual student that has to now come in front of the board, or parents have to come in front of the board to get permission to go outside of the board policy. I would like to see something built into our policy that would allow for that without that specific language. That would make me more comfortable with the policy. How it's written as it is, I'm not comfortable with it currently.
And I don't know, Marty, if you want to weigh in on this one as well, as we've had several discussions about it, that just would not be what we'd recommend. I think you'd find more students than not trying to rush through math in middle school to then not have to take it when they get to high school, and that is not, the data that we have available to us right now shows that those aren't the math outcomes we want for kids when they leave high school. Those same students are really struggling if they do go on to post-secondary. Some of those same students struggle taking the ASVAB that they need to get into the military, or taking the AccuPlacer test that they need to get into MATC, because math is something that you need to practice in order to make it, accessible to you when you need it in the moment. And that's just not what the data says is good instruction for kids and good practice. And so I would not feel comfortable with a policy that allowed that, to be honest.
Well, you said our policy basically does allow it, and that individual students can come forward and ask for it.
They would have to get specialized permission from the board, right? So that would be like a closed session coming to the board and asking for permission to go outside of one of our policies. Again, that's part of, DPI rules and state statute allows that, but that would be a very rare and unusual circumstance that we would want somebody to go outside of what we've decided are the graduation requirements for all students at the high school.
So one additional thing to think about with this, and I understand kind of the position you're taking, though. I disagree with it, and precisely because of what Deidre shared. It's just not educational best practice. But boards have, through policy, the opportunity to set, to communicate expectations, right? And so this kind of policy is really about the board's position on what we expect of young people. And I don't think we want to communicate that we expect less, right? So you can come to West Allis and you only have to take 3 years of math while you're in middle school, and you can be done with hard stuff. That's not what I want to communicate. I want to communicate we have higher expectations. And that's what this policy allows us to do, is that, yeah, you can take math when you're in middle school, and we'll transcript that over to high school, but when you get to high school, our expectations are higher. You still have to take math. And I think that's where we should stand.
I don't disagree that our expectations should be higher. But in order to take math in middle school that's high school level, you have to test at that level in order to be able to take it. So I don't think people are just going to be like, oh, I'm going to just get through my math as quickly as I can, because I don't think those students will be able to test at the level necessary to be able to take those upper level classes. So I think inherently by having those sort of requirements, you're automatically picking people who are already at the level educationally to be able to take these level classes. And so I think that weeds that issue out quite a bit.
I would disagree with that, in that if we meet the goals that we've outlined in the strategic plan, we should have a minimum of 80% of the students ready to take some of those courses by 8th grade, right? So that's the other reason that we have a need to bring a policy forward at this time, is that we've set some really lofty goals in our strategic plan, and the goal in the college and career readiness area is that 80% of the students will test at the 61st percentile or higher. And if 80% of the kids were testing at the 61st percentile or higher, they'd be ready to take algebra in 7th or 8th grade when it comes to math. And for foreign language, we're looking to grow some of our foreign language programs as well, and that allows for this. It also doesn't mean that we wouldn't start transcripting classes in English or science or social studies. Just at the present time, there is no kind of set markers the same way that there are for math and foreign language that make those. This policy would allow us to do that for anything. Our goal, when you look at what's coming with the Start College Now, our goal is to have more students participating in that, not necessarily just simply make a policy that allows for a select group of students who maybe were able to do those things. By setting that standard where we're looking for it, by putting those lofty goals in the strategic plan, we've already communicated that we want higher expectations for our students than we've ever had before. This reinforces that and encourages more and more students to be ready to complete the math series that we offer all the way K-12, and then go on to start taking college level courses when they're in high school.
The more I'm thinking about it, I guess I got a concern regarding the grading or non-grading aspect of it. Has there been any thought given to how that potentially could have an impact on cumulative GPAs, just from the standpoint of, again, as you're going up the ladder, you would anticipate those courses to be a little bit harder, more challenging, and potentially harder to get a strong grade. So you're taking some of these lower level, and lower level being a subjective term, but you're taking some of these in 7th or 8th grade potentially. You're not getting grades on those. Those could be classes that you would have gotten A's in high school. You are now taking more advanced classes when you get to high school where the grades are coming up. That could impact your cumulative GPA, potentially your scholarships, and some of those other things. So I guess what's the thought behind that?
Yeah, do you want to jump in?
But parents are always have the option, right? It's not a requirement. So
I understand
if
that.
a parent is concerned about that, then start taking high school math when you get to high school. If that's truly the concern, and our counselors should be advising families on those kind of options. But at the same time, families also make the decisions now to take harder courses, knowing that it might ding me in my GPA, because at the end of my high school career, I'm better prepared for college with a little lower GPA and maybe a little less scholarship money, but I'm going to be more successful when I get there. And that's really what parents want. They want their kids to be successful when they get there. Right. So that's really what the balance of it. But families have those choices now.
Well, and I get that, because I have a student who has challenged himself with some of those courses. So I'm completely of that mindset. I don't want kids to get lost in the shuffle who now are bored for a couple years in their math class in middle school because they don't want to challenge themselves, because they don't want to take that risk. That's my thought.
Got it.
Right.
Got it. No, that's a
Yeah.
different problem. That's
Right.
than a middle school problem for us to solve. That's
It is,
that's
exactly, but
yeah.
it's got ramifications that go both ways.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think some of what we're looking to do through our deeper learning practices that we've just started to roll out when it comes to the rigor and the amount of student exploration that would go into all of our coursework at the middle school level, hopefully will really increase the level of engagement for all of our students, regardless of where they sit in skill levels, so that there would be some other options and some more flexible things we could also do at the intermediate level that schools are actively planning for as we sit here today. So I think there's some options in that to sort of address that student who maybe has really high skills, but feels like it is a better option for them to wait until they're in high school to take those courses for those reasons.
Okay. Dan, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I was just going to say, so this program that you're talking about is just being rolled out now?
Start college now?
No, what did you say, mention Zebra or something? What, you mentioned some kind of course that the kids are looking at that you want to roll out in your statement. You said you want to roll something out. I guess what I'm saying is, when we talk about rolling things out, you know, how can you start to make decisions on policy when you're just starting to roll the program out and you don't know what the ramifications of the program are going to be?
Yeah, so I think when I was saying that we've rolled out some different expectations in this series of math,
Okay.
right, over the last several years, because we had changed the trajectory of math, and we went to where it was math course 1 in 6th grade and course
Right.
2 in 7th grade and course 3 in 8th grade, which at the pace we were going would have eliminated any of our students being in our higher level math courses within the course of a couple of years. So when we corrected that, it was to make sure that we are pushing more students to start taking at minimum algebra in 8th grade. That's not new. That's how we used to do it a long time ago, and then for some reason we went away from that level of rigor somewhere along the way, and we simply went back to that level of rigor. What we're finding already since switching kind of the series of math in order to have more students take the courses that have been in the course catalog for a very, very long time, they're not new. We did switch Intro to Math Apps, was the one course that we switched. And that was because we had students taking that one as a standalone math class and then not doing very well in algebra and then taking another remedial type math course. And that was all they were taking sometimes in our series of our math. So we revamped that course a little bit, but that is really because it is a remediation course designed to prepare you to be ready for Algebra 1. So when I say we switched things or we rolled something out like that, it was really to increase the level of rigor. So now we have far more students. We have almost, I would say,
double, if not more than that, students at the intermediate level ready to start taking algebra and geometry, which is why having a policy that honors that work and allows them to have those high school credits in an effort to get more and more students taking the best of the best we have to offer in math and foreign language at our high schools, and then have those opportunities to participate and start college now. That's why you want to do that.
Thank you.
Also, Deidre and I have had a lot of conversations with our math leads and math teachers about if you go in the traditional sequence of what we would have had last year of algebra, geometry, algebra 2 for a freshman, sophomore, and then junior year, you don't even have access to any function statistics, trigonometry, which is on the ACT, so you're really capped out at about an 18 on the ACT. You don't even have access to that curricular areas because you're not taking those challenging courses. So as we talk about moving that algebra piece into the lower grades in the 7th and 8th grade, you're really giving those kids access to calculus. Like, there's no pre-calc in there unless you're taking it as a senior, which is post-ACT.
And ACT, not just because we use that as our marker for statewide testing, but also because that's it's the number you need to get into the schools, right? And so we want to make sure our students have those opportunities. But at the same time, we also want a college to know that they took algebra, which is why it needs to get transcripted onto their high school transcript, right? So really, at the end of the day, it's so that it can physically be written onto that transcript so that the college knows, oh, good, they did take algebra, versus only seeing they took geometry or algebra 2 with trig, and there's no evidence that they completed what is a state requirement for math.
Any other questions? And I believe we're ready to act on it. And again, this is a first reading.
That's right.
Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? Final questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Jeff, just emphasize, this is a first reading. It
So
will
I
come
did.
back.
I said it's a first reading.
It will come back.
That passes. We'll move on to 10.2, 2016-17 school year audit report. And this is just kind of a follow-up to our workshop that we had last week.
Hello, and good evening. Good evening. Correct, we had the workshop last week, 2 weeks ago with Natalie from Wegner CPA. So this is just a follow-up and the recommendation that we approve the audited financials for 2016-17.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Pat?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, do you move to approve first?
We can do that during the
And then we do
discussion.
discussion.
Okay. Move to approve.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Moved and seconded.
My question is, they made a reference to the OPEB in there that they were going to have, they would like to see us have more in-depth discussion on that. Do you have plans for when you're going to bring that forward?
Ironically, I was speaking with Suzette, and we were going through dates and times.
In the near future?
Yeah, we're looking at the end of April, beginning of May, and we'll hold a workshop on that topic. Probably, to be honest, I'll probably put it together with one of the budgeting pieces that we're doing, just 2 separate topics, but still just touch on it as well.
I actually brought that up when I met with Marty, because that was on our list, and I didn't see it scheduled in it.
As board members come and go.
Exactly.
The newness
We
of the
have a
board,
lot of
there's
new-
just a real need for us to really have the full story and to see what the impact on the budget is. I'm glad that they're suggesting
Absolutely.
it.
Any other discussion questions? Okay, all in favor of the 16-17 school year audit report? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Passes. Move on to 10.3, the polling places in school buildings. Dr. Lexman.
So this is one that we've discussed, not necessarily with the board, but with principals a number of times ever since I joined the school district. And in particular, elementary principals were always very concerned and expressed that concern to me about, the safety of kids during election days when there's, doors wide open and lots of people coming and going. So one of the things we did this year is we moved PD days, professional development days, to election days. And so that helps somewhat. But there's still a lot of unknowns with having a polling place inside of a school. And is it safe, and given kind of even the latest kind of concerns around school safety. And it was really Noah's prompting that said, is this a time to bring this back up? And let's talk about this some more. And what I'm really asking the board to do this evening is, if it makes sense to you, to direct us to work with the city to begin the process of planning to move polling places out of school buildings. And it may take some time. This is probably not all of a sudden, all at once. But I would want to talk to the city about working first with the polling places we have in elementary schools, because I think those are more difficult to manage than high schools, where you can get some separation. But I'd kind of work through it from there. But it really was, I thought, before we start really moving down this path, to get some direction from the board.
Pat?
Do we need a motion first?
Yes.
I move to approve.
Second.
Now we're up for discussion.
Yes, I think this is a really good idea. This is a city function, it's not a school function. And as we've had conversation in the past few months, in addition to the safety aspect that we're seeing right now and are also concerned about, is also how much we lose on the flexibility of the calendar. Spring is a tricky time to try to schedule different things based on Easter being movable, always, a moving target, and then getting our professional development days in and the testing, so I just think the time has come. Maybe it's things like libraries and other public venues that they can deal with, but I think they need to start talking about it, because we are in a situation where we now have to really focus on entry into the buildings, a single entry, so that we can feel that the students are safe and secure.
I mean, we don't have any principals here to speak to it, but I taught elementary my whole career. And those days, you never knew who was walking anywhere. So I think it's, and now that we have a new city clerk, that might be more open to it, I think this is the perfect time to do it.
Yeah, I'll just comment that, yeah, I went and spoke at the Common Council meeting actually about this about a month ago, because it was a concern that I had as a citizen, and just wanted to express my concerns about that and implore them to look into it more. And the city clerk, actually, it was his first day. He came up to me afterwards and gave me his business card and said, you know, I'm going to look into this, so, you know, please keep in touch.
We're going to ask that he attend our school city meeting next week.
Yeah, good.
So we can kind of break him in, so to say. So any other discussion? It's been moved and seconded to direct Dr. Lexman to take a look at this with the city. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That passes. We are at number 11, suggestion for future agenda ideas. The last time I met with Marty last week, we did go through all that list of everything there, and somewhere through the course of everything, except I think it was the after-school care, but that's going to come out in a
Before school.
Workshop.
Okay.
So it will be addressed.
Okay.
So I don't know that we need to have a workshop on it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
When were the question that I had about term limitations?
Well, we actually kind of talked, no, go if you,
Right.
I'm answering, but go ahead.
No, I don't actually remember what we brought it up, because, yeah, it's on the list of things. I'm not quite sure how the board wants to proceed with that
And we
kind of
kind of talked
conversation.
about, maybe we should throw that on after this election that's
Well,
coming.
but Jeff, that question was asked over 2 months ago. Why are you gonna roll it over till after the election? Tell me,
Well, I guess
so I can make
because
some
at the
sense.
time, in the list of priorities and importance, we didn't think that was
Well, okay,
there.
yeah, okay.
I just want to say one thing. I've looked into this myself, actually, and we can't actually do anything about it as a board. It's actually listed on state statute as far as what term limits go.
I didn't say we had to do anything about it. I said
Just a
we could talk
discussion.
about it. And a discussion is a lot different than doing something about it.
What's the point of the discussion if we can't do anything about it?
Well, I'd like my fellow board members to tell me how they feel about it. That's all. It's a discussion.
I could email you my thoughts. I mean,
Well, if everybody on the board wants to email me their thoughts, that's fine.
we could have a resolution that we would want with our own school board district, but it would not be binding. If someone wanted to run and got the votes, they'd be on the election ballot. There's nothing we could do about it. So it'd be a handshake deal, and that's
You
it.
know, when we talked about it, we didn't even get that far even into looking at what the state.
I called WASB. I called WASB and talked to their attorney to find out the results, and that's what the attorney at WASB told me.
Well, then he should present that to the whole board. Because if you're starting to talk to the attorney at WASB, then that attorney needs to send us a message that you talked to him, and it's the policy of WASB.
I could call him again and have him send a communication.
That would be too far in depth on this now for suggestions.
No, that'd be fine.
Any other ones that we may not have talked about previously? Seeing none, we'll take a 5-minute recess while Brian breaks down the cameras, and then we'll come back for a discussion and workshop and our closed session.